So there's a lot of confusion as far as libertarianism and what libertarianism means. Now, I'm not going to sit here and strawman any person's beliefs. I'm just here to try and give you the facts. So, as you all know, the U.S. and Canadian Libertarian Party are right-wing on economics, right? Which is okay. I think the main point of libertarianism at the end of the day is making sure the individual is free as humanly possible. Now, you have right-wing libertarians, the ANCAPs, the minarchists, who basically believe in the free market having most, if not all, say over the market. And then you have left-wing libertarians who believe in certain programs like Medicare for all and universal health care, free college, family paid leave, stuff like that. And the main difference between right libertarians and left libertarians are right libertarians believe in a system where basically the market can regulate itself. That, we should put all of our trust within the market, and that if there is a market failure, then the market can self-regulate and solve the problem. Now, as far as left libertarians go, we tend to believe that markets just like a sports game, just like a debate. You need referees and you need rules, right? Another difference is our concept of what economic liberty is, right? So, laissez-faire, right-wing libertarians, they believe that things like wealth inequality, poverty, they believe that if government is out of the way, then charity and voluntarism is going to be able to pick up the slack of homelessness and healthcare. They basically believe that the market, once government is out of the picture, can provide safety nets rather than government programs. Now, the reason why left libertarians believe in things like universal health care, things like family paid leave, we believe that economic liberty is just as important as individual liberty. Not to sound cliche, we live in a world, we want to live in a world where gay couples can protect their opium fields with automatic rifles, right? That's maximum individual liberty. Now the problem is, you can have all the liberty in the world, right? But what if you're hungry? What if you're sleeping on the streets? And what if there is nobody to help you? Now, not the straw man at all, but I've met a few libertarians who, in no way, shape, or form, they basically believe that fuck it, you don't have any support, you don't have any money, you did it to yourself. Sucks for you. I guess you're gonna die. And me, I've not saying all libertarians believe that on the right. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's a lot of flaws within that system, because now there are people who can't afford health care, people who are seniors who didn't have enough retirement money and don't have family members to help them out. Um, there are so many real world situations where I can point out where the market doesn't help people. The market, capitalism, I'm a capitalist. Capitalism, if it's regulated, if there are safety nets, then it's a moral system to me. But what we have right now, the current system, I mean, it's basically feudalism and wage slavery. Now, corporatism is what we have right now, right? Now, capitalism, laissez-faire capitalism, it can get rid of many of the problems we have now. Lobbying, um, government interference within the market, loopholes for the rich and stuff. Um, that can help, but the problem is laissez-faire capitalism can only help so much. Okay, you're still going to have people who can't afford health care. Some people are not going to have any safety nets. If you're an orphan, sucks for you. If you're homeless, sucks for you. So that's my problem. And you know, again, their argument is, well, charity will just fix everything. Well, that's not true. You see, we had laissez-faire capitalism for 145 years in this country, and within those 145 years, it failed. People weren't covered, people were dying, and if it did work, we wouldn't have had to have people like FDR come in and change everything, and have the federal government step in. Um, so basically, left libertarians, now whether you're an anarchist libertarian or a statist libertarian, at the end of the day, theoretically you can be an anarchist, but anarchy is most likely never going to happen. The chances of anarchy happening is slim to none. Because one, we're talking about facing the world's strongest military ever, and then after we beat them, now we have to beat superpowers like China and Russia, who see that we're weak and have no government, and they can quickly step in and take us over. But there are a lot of scenarios that we can think about as to why anarchy being actually implemented is slim to none. But what us left libertarians believe is that if we're going to have a state, then that state has to provide us our liberty, whether individually or economically. So if we're going to have a state, then they need to implement things like universal health care or UBI, safety nets to make sure that people have the bare necessities to live. Because I don't believe your rights should come through how much value you give a CEO or a businessman. I think your rights should come from birth. You should have the right to be able to live free and be prosperous and happy and have all the things you need to keep your life going. And I'm not saying give everybody a yacht. I'm not saying give everybody thousands of dollars or whatever. No, I'm simply saying make it so that everybody has an equal opportunity regardless of class, regardless of, the specific time you were born and where you were born. Because at the end of the day, like, you're pretty lucky if you're born into wealth, but majority of us are not lucky. Majority of us are born in the ghettos. Majority of us live in situations where we don't have, our economic liberty. So we need a system where socialism and capitalism is mixed together, in order to maximize liberty as much as humanly possible. Capitalism does good in certain areas, and socialism does good in other areas. Now, there's a huge straw man saying that left-wing anarchy requires force, which isn't true at all. In fact, if anything, anarcho-capitalism is the only type of anarchy that has a hierarchy, because at the end of the day, corporations have power. Money is power. And corporations have always worked with government to exploit us and make money off of our misery and pain. And that's always how it's been. And if you replace state tyranny with corporation tyranny, now you have a quote-unquote state that now has no incentive to give a shit about you. Now they can work with other corporations, buy up towns and cities, build a whole military force or whatever, and just, hell, even make monopolies and merge together and just control the market any way they can. There's a lot of poked holes with replacing the state with corporations. I mean, and then you have things like, who's going to stop them from dumping in the river? Who's going to make sure that the buildings are up to code and that, you have a safe environment to work, let alone sleep? I mean, we're going to have, humans just can't live off of voluntary taxes. There is no developed nation or any nation for that matter that has ever worked purely on taxes. On voluntary taxes. Last year, we couldn't even surpass $500 billion in charity. So if we can't even surpass that with government, I guess their logic is, we'll have $500 billion more dollars to go off of if there is no government. I don't know, but clearly that's just not the case. Clearly, we've seen history and market failures tell us that no. Charity and voluntarism only goes so far, and it clearly can't fund or help a nation of people. As far as libertarian socialism and anarcho-communism, I'm not a socialist or a communist. I think there has to be a huge mix, and the problem with, systems like that, in my opinion, is it only goes so far, and there are only so many personal things that you can have. Like, for instance, if you live in a commune, then all the people decide, for instance, if you want to have a tub koozie or a hot tub in your house, you're not going to be able to have that. Whatever they provide as a quote unquote luxury, is what you're going to have. So if there's just going to be if you're going to have a commune, people can vote to say, hey, well, we don't need hot tubs or tub koozies. A public swimming pool is all you need. So, I think on the economic scale, you can only go so far. I believe in a system where you have the opportunity to go as far as you can, both individually and economically. And that's where I believe capitalism comes into place. Because of capitalism helps with innovation. Capitalism, creates competition and gives you the best quality items for the lowest price. Or at least in theory, right? That's not always the case, but again, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to rules and referees. At the end of the day, we need to have a system that makes sure we are liberated, both on the economic scale and individually. like I said, you can have all the freedom in the world, but that freedom isn't going to matter if you're starving, if you can't afford the bare necessities for you and your children. You should be able to have a life where you can not only have that liberty, but enjoy that liberty. Make sure that the average person has a decent living, that they aren't starving, that they aren't living in poverty or on the streets. I mean, we have homeless veterans on the streets right now, guys. I don't see that as a moral system. You know how much it would cost to end homelessness? $20 billion. So I'm just trying to give you aspects on the pros and cons of capitalism and socialism under libertarianism. Because at the end of the day, you know, I've been on both sides of the aisles. I've been a laissez-faire capitalist, and now I'm a social democratic capitalist. Basically, I just want us to be like a giant Scandinavia, except, much less government in our personal lives. So hopefully I've been able to explain to you what economic liberty means on both sides of the aisle. And just another point on laissez-faire capitalism, like I understand their point on, you should keep what you personally earn, which, I agree. But at the same breath, if you're just an individual, there are certain things that we can't do just as individuals, especially if we weren't born into wealth. Now, maybe if you're born into wealth, and you inherited some money, that's great. But there's just for instance, moving, for instance. Can you guys imagine if you didn't have any friends or family members to help you move? Like, that's something that an individual can't do by themselves. There are other examples, but the main point is that we need to have a mixture of both. Pure socialism is tyranny, and pure capitalism is tyranny, and we need to be able to find a balance to make sure that liberty is maximized as possible. So, here's a graph. I just wanted to show you guys where I think I'm probably at. If you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you go down 7, if you go down 7, 1, 2. If you go down 7, and if you go down 7 and -2, I think I'm around the syndicalism spectrum. Yeah, because I'm moderately left, so I would probably be in the syndicalism aisle of things. But yeah, I wanted to give my take as a non-biased libertarian, being somebody who's been on both the spectrums. I've been around everywhere. So, but hopefully I've been able to give you a little bit more understanding of where left libertarians are coming from, as well as where right libertarians are coming from as well.